All right. Hey, 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 animal allies. Michelle here with AAC. We are really excited to be with you today to recap and celebrate the big news. Victory has been declared as Omni Hotels and Resorts has officially gone foie gras free. They sent an email to the Duck Alliance stating that they will no longer sell foie gras and have no plans to ever do so again. Have you heard this news? Go ahead and comment. We'd like to hear how you heard about this. And this is really a historic win, and we are here to break it down for you, how it all unfolded. So I am joined by Trey of AAC from the East Coast, Lynette of ARC Chicago in Chicago, and Nika of Duck Defenders in Minnesota may be joining us, and Jen of DC Coalition Against Foie Gras in DC, and Pete, co-founder of Duck Alliance, may join us as well at some point. But all participants are part of the Duck Alliance, part of this campaign. This was a very collaborative effort, which is why it was successful. And our panel will be happy to answer your questions shortly as well. So, as I said, a lot went into this campaign over the past year. Since it started, since it was launched, a ton of secondary or tertiary targeting, home demos. Let's unpack it and piece together the timeline. Trey, let's start with you. So, first, tell us how you felt when you heard the news and talk about AAC's role in the campaign, the New York City convergence, and other actions.
Yeah, I think I felt just an overwhelming sense of joy and relief. These campaigns, a lot go into them. I just counted a second ago, I already forgot the number, but like over 40 different groups participated in this campaign. It was a major thing to take on. And so, yeah, I was thrilled. I was elated. And yeah, we had a moment of joy where we had like a meeting with all the different groups that could join, and we all got to celebrate together a little bit, and that was really cool. And yeah, the New York City convergence, I think that was a major thing that played a part in the victory. Just a lot of us from around the country, and also some of our friends in Europe were able to come over to New York, where we were focusing not only on foie gras at Omni, but also fur during the Condé Nast victory that happened right before this one, which is also, I'm also very thrilled about. Um, yeah, and then there was the Rage Tour as well that a lot of us were able to attend and focus on Omni and Condé Nast. So yeah, it's been a real collective effort from everyone. I'm so thrilled.
Absolutely. Great. So, Jen, how about yourself? Introduce yourself and how did you feel? And what actions did you organize in DC? Because I know you did some secondary targeting, like protesting David Von Storch, owner of Vita Fitness, for his ties to Omni. So give us a lay of the land of what happened in DC.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Jen. I organize for the DC Coalition Against Foie Gras. We work both on national campaigns alongside the Duck Alliance, as well as local campaigns to get foie gras permanently out of Washington, D.C. We started participating in the Omni campaign over a year ago now, which is crazy to say. I was looking back through our old folders of videos, and I saw one dated early October of last year. So that was pretty crazy to see. DC organized over a dozen protests against Omni Hotel itself. I was also part of Rage Tour and got to go to Omnis all over the East Coast, which was great. And then DC organized some secondary targeting of the Omni in DC, primarily targeting Vita Fitness. So Omni partnered with a local fitness chain in the area that provided classes inside the Omni Hotel. So we did some secondary targeting of Vita Fitness to try to break that connection to Omni. And that included a home demo at David Von Storch's home following an Omni protest. And he is the owner of the group that owns Vita Fitness.
Nice. Excellent. Good. So we're going to keep unpacking that and dive a little bit deeper into why those actions work, what they look like, and what they entail. But let's go to Lynette. Lynette, if you could introduce yourself, how did you feel when you heard about the win? Talk a little bit about your actions in Chicago. You got Bonchi Pizza to cut ties with Omni. You got the Space Between Yoga Studio to cut ties with Bonchi. You protested Chef Stephanie Izzard for ties in Omni, in addition to protesting Omni itself. So what stands out for you and how are you feeling?
Well, I mean, how much bigger can you say? This is thrilling. This is such a direct result of all of our hard work together, and it's so cool to see. We're looking forward to celebrating after our demo at our local foie gras Target this weekend. So we're going to get together and do that. What really made our what we really nailed was doing these secondary targets. We wanted to make sure that Omni had our message loud and clear. So by protesting their partnerships, embarrassing them like that, having their partners say, "Hey, we don't want to work with you because of foie gras," I believe was very, very influential. And we are consistent. They saw us every week, sometimes twice. We'd have wake-up calls. We'd come in and say goodnight right before the noise ordinance cut off. We would spend our holidays with them. And they had a grand opening of Harry Potter. And we were there too.
Yeah, excellent. I love that. Let's highlight those two keys. Consistency and just loudness and showing up are so important in that way. So Trey, I don't know, can you say, like why Omni? Why was Omni selected going back a year from now? Who is Omni for folks who don't know? How big are they? And I imagine this is their first time experiencing being a target of protests. How did they react initially?
This is actually not the first time that they were a target of protest. Okay. I believe that there were some like welfare organizations that had gone after Omni in the past. And unfortunately didn't win, but I'm glad that we were able to pull together and get a win. It's it was a difficult target. They're a multi-billion-dollar company that has over 50 locations across North America, US and Canada. So yeah, but they were chosen. So back about a year ago, it was last October. We were in Austin for the AAC Austin Convergence. And one of the goals originally for that convergence was to get High Hospitality to go foie gras free, but we won that campaign before the convergence started. So then we switched to focusing on the local holdouts in Austin. And some of those we were able to get to go foie gras free before the convergence started as well. Then there were a few left once we got there. One of those restaurants was Blind Salamander, which was a restaurant inside of the Omni Hotel. And we were really trying to get Austin to be an entirely foie gras free city. That's part of what made us think of Omni, because the Blind Salamander was inside of Omni. And, with giant targets like this, if you can get one to topple, the dominoes often start to fall. And I'm really hoping that that's what's going to happen with this victory. I mean, Omni is a huge company and a huge name in hospitality. And for them to go foie gras free due to activist pressure, I think that sends a message. I think it sends a message to anybody who's selling foie gras. If Omni can drop it because of activist pressure, a company that's worth like 10 plus billion, then, if you're like a local restaurant selling foie gras, do you really want to go up against grassroots animal rights activists who are going to be relentless?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good point. I love that. And so, I want to read the email that was received. Is that okay if I do that? It's really short. So the email from David Harker, corporate chef, head of culinary at Omni Hotels and Resorts, it looks like it was received around on Wednesday, October 8th or so. Thank you for the email. Omni no longer sells foie gras and has no plans to ever do so again. Foie gras is not on any Omni menus, including wedding and event menus. Any menus you may see online are old menus that are appearing on cached internet pages. Kind regards, David Harker. Thank you, David. So I don't know, maybe I could get each of your feedback just in terms of that email, how it lands that much, but it says enough. Is it typical? React to the wording. What do we think of that, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty typical of what we've seen even at the local level in terms of responses. The key there for me is hearing that they will never serve it again. As long as we can lock in on that specific messaging, that is something that we can hold them accountable to if they ever go back on their word. And the fact that it comes from David Harker all the way up the chain helps with that as well.
Lynette, what are your thoughts of that email, that response from David Harker?
It's really clear. They said never again. And I liked how they tried to make sure that we knew that some of the menus were old, just in case we are still, holding them accountable to the policy they announced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to say too, the first correspondence that Duck Alliance had with David Harker was very different. He did say that Omni was taking foie gras off of their menus, and they did. This was back in January or February. Omni did take it off the menu, but he and Omni refused to say that they were going to have a foie gras free policy, and they were kind of keeping the door open to potentially selling it again. So there were a lot of months where grassroots activists around the country and also in Canada were protesting Omni, even though it wasn't on the menu. And often we would hear that from the managers. It's not on the menu. It's not on the menu. But it doesn't matter. We were going for a foie gras free policy. We didn't want to say, hey, we're going to leave you alone just because you took it off the menu, because, yeah, like I said, that leaves the door open for them to sell it in the future. We don't want to stop during a future campaign to have to go back to Omni because, we left the door open. So I'm glad that we all saw it all the way through. It's thanks to so many different grassroots groups and individuals who helped behind the scenes, and also with big protests. So yeah, we're very thankful for that. And yeah, Omni changed their tune.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we want to remind people that certainly we don't just take them on their word. We want it in writing. We want to see it in writing, and they know that we're watching, and that, I mean, the consequence for them if they went back to selling foie gras would be that we would return. They know that. How do they know that? We would return even hotter because we've done it before. So is it posted on the website now? Has anybody checked? What does it say there? And did they announce it on social media, or do they just sort of staying quiet? Is that a strategy of theirs to sort of stay quiet about it? What do we think? What do you think, Trey?
Yeah, I think different companies are going to handle it in different ways. When the anti-fur movement got Marc Jacobs to drop fur, he made a very public announcement about it, kind of denouncing anti-fur activists and calling them bullies. Sort of a mean post to the people who care about animals. But he publicly said, we're no longer going to sell fur. But with Omni, it seems sort of like, hey, they're going to tell the activists, they're going to give it to us in writing. But I don't think I've seen anything on their website or anything on their social media. And I really wouldn't expect them to put it there. They probably would just rather do it quietly rather than admit that, a grassroots effort got them to stop doing something.
Sounds good. Jen or Lynette, do you want to add to that at all?
I mean, I think it's typical of a group to not want to share publicly that they have succumbed to pressure from activists. They don't want to show weakness publicly, and they don't want to demonstrate to the public what kind of tactics would work against them. So I'm not surprised that they didn't put something out largely, and they tried to keep it as private as possible. I think it makes sense. If I were them, I would probably want to do the same thing.
All right, gotcha. Lynette,
Yeah,
anything you want to
well
add to that?
Yes, well said. Their sustainability policies aren't something that they celebrate either. So yeah, it doesn't really seem like they would be proud of, not serving foie gras anymore.
Gotcha. So we do have some questions coming in from our comments. I want to get to those questions, but maybe before we do that, just a bit about like what is foie gras? If each of you could just comment on that. How widely is it consumed? I know it's consumed more in Europe. And why is it important to place foie gras front and center? Trey, do you want to comment on that?
Sure, yeah. The French often get credit for foie gras. I'm not sure exactly where it originated, but or who came up with the idea to, I mean, just some of these ways that animals are exploited, you wonder about like the process and like who, what kind of sick individual thought of these things. But for foie gras, it's literally French for fatty liver, and a pipe is inserted into a duck or a goose's throat, usually a duck, inserted into their mouth, down their throat, and food is shoveled in, basically to force feed them. And they're force fed way more than their natural diet should be. Their livers often enlarge up to 10 times their natural size. So if you can imagine just one of your organs being 10 times its natural size, trying to, being a 6-week-old baby, trying to just navigate the world while you're being force fed for every meal. And yeah, your liver is just, on the brink of exploding. It's an awful, sick kind of torture that these animals endure. And the public, even people who are not vegetarian or not vegan, often they even know how cruel this product is. So the fact that the public is generally on board with foie gras being cruel is great. It's already banned in the state of California. It's banned in the city of Pittsburgh. It's banned in Brookline, Massachusetts. It's not officially banned in Gainesville, but activists there in Gainesville, Florida, have, forced all the local restaurants there to get rid of foie gras after some activism. And it's just something that is that people are waking up to. They're waking up to the cruelty of it. And there's only, sorry if you can hear my dog, there's only one major foie gras farm in the United States. There's a few of them that produce foie gras, but there's one major one that's supplying pretty much the entire United States. So the fact that there's one entity supplying the majority of this country, I think going after foie gras is strategic because of that. It's not a product that's subsidized like dairy and other, eggs and other meat. So yeah, all these things I think make foie gras a great thing to go after. And I also want to mention that activists in Europe are starting to really put the pressure on this industry as well. We just posted today on Animal Activism Collective's page that I'm not going to try to pronounce the group because I'll get it wrong, but a really cool group in Poland has gotten 3 wins just like in the last week or two, getting local restaurants to drop foie gras. So it's something that is continuing to catch momentum, is continuing to catch fire. And I think that each one of these victories is a domino, and it helps the next victory be easier and easier and easier. And I think if we stay focused on foie gras and keep going, that we can actually get rid of it in the United States in our lifetimes and hopefully beyond.
Nice. Jen, do you want to comment on like how you first heard about foie gras in general, and what's the public response when you educate them about that cruelty?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will get to that. I wanted to add a couple things to what Trey was saying, because I think he hit two really like incredible points about why foie gras is such an important issue that for us to go after. First being that I think it is a single issue campaign that we can reasonably eliminate because of the public support. And as you said, Michelle, that's the reaction we get when we're on the ground. People are often horrified by what's going on when they aren't familiar, and many already are familiar and opposed. This is sold to, the top percentage of consumers at restaurants, those in the highest income brackets, and the average population is opposed to this product. That's what we encounter. That's what the polling has suggested when we've done polling in our city. So the fact that the general public is already opposed to this product means that it's one that we can reasonably work to eliminate globally. And once we can knock out a product like foie gras, then the Overton window increases for us to go after other things. So I think it's really important that we focus on knocking out the wins we can get. And I think that gets to the second point, is that I think we should focus on issues where we can win. And this is obviously one of them. At the local level, we can knock out tons of restaurants just with small grassroots groups, as Poland has demonstrated over the last week, and many cities across the United States have demonstrated. So why not go after things that we can knock out? I think that is such an important thing for maintaining momentum in communities, for them to see that they get wins, and to show the power that we hold when we focus on an issue that's winnable. So yes, the communities can see, and when they see the pictures, when they hear about what happens to these animals, the reaction is almost always in horror or surprise at how badly these animals are treated. And I think that really helps our case, that the general public agrees with us that this is something that should be eliminated.
Lynette, do you want to add to that? I'm sure you agree. And how important is it for activists to be educated about the specifics of different types of cruelty? Have you seen the footage? Have you shown the footage? How important is it to expose the footage?
It is important for people to see it instead of just having a concept, yes, which is why having videos and graphic posters at protests, I believe, are very effective. The general public is pretty repulsed by this practice, and it is unnecessarily cruel. I believe that luxury is really falling out of style because it is unattainable. And so I think that working on these industries that don't impact an average person's day-to-day are the steps that we can take to abolishing, the exploitation of animals.
So I'm going to go to a question which really starts to have us explore pressure campaigns and the different components of pressure campaigns a little bit more, which the question is, how important is consistency, and what does that mean exactly? And I will add to that, how crucial is escalation? What is meant by escalation? And maybe give us, from each of your cities, examples in this campaign of escalation. Trey, do you want to start?
Yeah, both consistency and escalation are crucial parts to a pressure campaign. And consistency can actually be an escalation as well. So maybe you have a local foie gras target that you protest once a week, and then you start protesting them twice a week, and then you start protesting them 3 times a week after a while. And it's a steady escalation just to let them know that you're not going away, you are not going to give up. And if they ever want to get rid of you, they better do what you ask them to do, and to stop abusing animals, or in this instance, to stop selling foie gras. Consistency, when it comes to a national or an international target like Omni, it requires a lot of effort. Omni like I said, has over 50 locations, including their headquarters in Dallas. And a lot of grassroots groups and individuals worked on this campaign. I'm going to attempt to list them really quick. Please don't get mad at me if I've accidentally left your group out. It's a lot here, but I really want to shout these groups out and give them their due. AAC, obviously, ADL Chicago, ARC Chicago, ARM NYC, Animal Rights Initiative, or ARI, Animals for Animals at University of Maryland, Asheville Animal Defense League, Animal Connection of Texas, Austin Animal Advocates, Barkback Atlanta, Bold Activists for Animal Liberation, they're in San Diego, Boston Animal Advocates, Coalition to Abolish the Fur Trade, who helped us out indirectly and directly. I can talk about that a little more later. Chainsaw Boston, Charlotte Coalition Against Foie Gras, Christian Animal Rights Association, Cleveland Coalition Against Foie Gras, DC Coalition Against Foie Gras, Direct Action Everywhere even stepped in and helped promote one of our actions. Duck Alliance Arizona, Duck Alliance Denver, Duck Defenders of Minnesota, and Nika just joined us. I hope we can get to her in just a second. DXC Illinois, DXC Montreal, Empty the Cages Orlando, Gainesville Animal Defenders, Georgia Tech Veggie Jackets, Houston Animal Defenders, International Council for Animal Welfare, Los Angeles Animal Defense League, Lone Star Scythe, North Carolina Animal Advocates United, Nashville Animal Advocacy, New Orleans Coalition for Animal Protection, Omni Hotels Sucks, now titled Omni Hotels No Longer Sucks, Pittsburgh Animal Defenders, Revolution Philadelphia, St. Frank's Loud Voices Club, San Diego ADL, The Simple Heart, who collaborated with us on the DC Summit, which was really big, SoFlo Animal Rights, Tears for Change, True Cost Project, shout out Pete, Uncompromised Action for Animals, and of course, Thomas Gorman at Duck Alliance. His leadership helped us a whole lot. And I know Nika's only with us for a limited amount of time, so maybe we can pop to her real quick.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. But I just want to acknowledge that was such a long list. It reminds me of like after the movie, the long list of credits that come down at the end of the movie. But we don't want to miss anybody, and we want to shout out. But hi, Nika. How are? Good to see you.
Hi. Yeah, I just have a short little moment here, but hi, everyone. I am up in Minnesota, Duck Defenders of Minnesota. And I just like to start by thanking all of the small grassroots organizations. You heard the long list. And special shout out to AAC and the Duck Alliance for supporting all of us. The amount of support from those two orgs really made everything happen. Everything from convergences to editing and posting media, inspiring folks to get involved, continuing to support the small grassroots efforts across the country. The Duck Defenders of Minnesota exists because of AAC's ability to inspire activists, and we're impactful during this campaign because of the constant support and encouragement from AAC and the Duck Alliance. Two main takeaways from Minnesota's efforts during this campaign. The first is that you don't have to have a ton of experience to get out and make a difference. Most people in our crew had never used a megaphone or participated in any pressure campaigns. Yet we definitely had a presence and pissed a lot of people off. A secondary target of the infamous Ann Kim even closed during the campaign. The second takeaway is the importance of secondary targets. We had been doing weekly disruptions at Omni due to their lack of public access for protesting. So when AAC and the Duck Alliance reached out about the Ann Kim angle, we jumped right on it. For folks who don't know, Ann Kim is an award-winning chef with 4 restaurants in the Twin Cities, including one inside of our local Omni, and then, the one that closed down. Given her semi-celebrity status and connection with Omni, we anticipated and hoped she maybe had pull with David Harker. We were right. After constant pressure with weekly protests, disruptions, chalking, phone storms, comment storms, the manager of Pizzeria Lola came outside to inform us that Ann Kim contacted David Harker and got Omni to take foie gras off of their restaurant menus. A huge development in the campaign. However, they continued to offer foie gras at special events and did not send us an actual policy. So we continued. And I think he got in trouble for sharing that information because the next time I tried to speak with him, he simply said that he was not supposed to speak with us anymore. Just with consistency and passion, small novice activist groups protesting secondary targets might seem small, but it can really make a difference. So yeah, thanks to everyone's support.
Thank you, Nika. Thank you for summarizing your role and what you guys were doing in Minnesota. Do you know like about how many protests maybe you did? How consistent were you? And did Ann Kim herself actually respond at any point?
She never directly responded to us protesters. We, I believe, were around 20-ish protests. Yeah.
So how do you feel about the win? How did you feel when you heard about the win?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. This campaign was such a huge growth moment for myself, for other local activists. Just so much growth and really inspiring and hoping we can continue on.
Awesome. I know you look like you're at work there, and we really appreciate that you're popping on because we really love to hear from everybody to give everybody such a big view of all the puzzle pieces that went into this. Any other sort of tips or takeaways for folks who want to start their own grassroots pressure campaigns?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. And there's nothing wrong with asking for support from more experienced activists. We are all here to help each other, and that's how we're going to make a difference. There's power in numbers, and there's power in learning from folks who are more experienced.
Nice. Love it. Yeah, so we do have some questions coming in. One, I guess, is a little bit getting into the future, which is, will you, this is for everybody, target any other hotel chains in the near future? And also, how do you audit such a big company? So Jen, do you have a reply to either of those or both?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak for the Duck Alliance about what they might be doing in the future, but what I can say is that each local community has the power to work on the hotel chains in their city. You do not need to go after an entire hotel chain to make a change. We have targeted probably a handful of hotels in Washington, D.C. to secure foie gras-free policies from the establishment located in the hotel. So even if you do not have the power and the bandwidth to launch an entire national campaign on a big major hotel chain, you can still work on hotels. I think hotels make really great targets because they are susceptible not just to their patrons and the restaurants' opinions and views, but the people trying to sleep and enjoy their vacations. So they make really great targets. So would definitely encourage people in their local cities to consider hotels when they're going about their campaigns. And then in terms of auditing, there's a lot of great tools out there to keep track of restaurants, whether it be Google Alerts or setting up your own systems to track changes to menus digitally. If needed, you can always go by in person. We have to do this sometimes at our local restaurants, and it never hurts to send someone out in the field every now and then to keep an eye on places. But maybe Trey, I don't know, might have more thoughts on the direction that AAC or Duck Alliance is heading with hotel chains.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with your sentiment that, we don't necessarily have to go after an enormous target every time. The foie gras industry, as I mentioned before, there's one main supplier in the United States. I know people are watching this from like all over, but specifically talking about the United States, there's one supplier. So every local restaurant that drops foie gras is a significant victory. And if you're somebody who doesn't have as much experience with pressure campaigns, I think, launching a huge one, something that might be better than doing that would be to join an existing one that has some resources, or start a local campaign in your area. And AAC actually just launched this new initiative, their grassroots pressure campaign training. So if you're interested in starting a pressure campaign in your city, you can get in contact with AAC, and we can help you with that. We can help you pick a target that's most strategic, and we can help you with the resources and all that good stuff. And I would highly recommend that, because I know me personally, when I first started pressure campaigning, I made some major mistakes that cost me a lot of time, that I wish that I'd had something like this that could have pointed me in the right direction and set me on a path where I could have been most effective. So I highly recommend taking advantage of this new resource that we have. And I also lastly want to say, I think when it comes to foie gras, we're in a unique position where we, because with the fur industry, for example, it's almost easier in a way to go after the big corporations, because so many of them only sell a little bit of fur, and it's not worth it for them to have fur if they're going to be getting bombarded by grassroots activists all around the world. But with local mom and pop like fur shops, a lot of them sell like exclusively fur. They're just a furrier, and it's harder to get those shops to close down, because you're essentially asking them to either change their entire business model or to shut down. And people are going to be a lot more resistant to that than saying, hey, can you just change this one little thing that you're doing? Just don't sell this one thing. That's a much easier ask. So with foie gras, we're in a unique position where there's all these local restaurants that sell it, and we can ask them not to, and we can protest them if we ask them, they don't do it. We can protest them until they do it. And so we're more in a position where we can get these local wins that are a little bit easier, but they're also still very significant, because there's only one main supplier of foie gras in the United States. So every single local restaurant that drops foie gras is like a big deal. It's a big deal when that happens. And it can also help us just build momentum. Like, my advice would be, start with the very easiest target that you can think of. Get that win, show other people in your community what you can do and what these protests can achieve and these campaigns can achieve, and then build and take on the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And before you know it, you're going to have 5 victories under your belt, and you'll be a seasoned activist out of nowhere. So, that would be my advice about the foie gras industry. I really think that just continuing to go after these local targets that sell foie gras will be a big deal and can help topple the foie gras industry.
Those are excellent points, Trey. Thank you so much. And I want to add to that we do already have, I think, a few workshops and live streams on our YouTube channel that give a bit of an overview on how to do a pressure campaign. That's a great place to start. Lynette, anything you want to add about any glimpse into the future of what's next in Chicago, or any tips and takeaways for other cities?
Supporting national campaigns is so satisfying. It is beautiful to see 45 groups come together and get something done. So we are so excited to support whatever is next. In the meantime, we have local targets, and these seem to be strategically very easy. A handful of items on the menu, not something that's really important to them. So what's going to matter is our disruptions, is our noise, is, ruining $300 dinners by asking them to stop selling it. So yeah, we got local campaigns to take care of, and then on to the next national one, right?
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So I want to shout out Pro Animal Futures in Denver and DC campaigns to legislate away foie gras. How important is coming from the lobbying and ballot initiative approach, the legislative approach? Any thoughts on that? Of course, it all works in tandem, ideally, with street activism and pressure campaigns. Any comments on that, Trey?
Yeah, we love what Pro Animal Future is doing. I think it was really smart of them to uh, go after foie gras for all the reasons that we stated before. It's not really in the public favor to support foie gras. So I think and hope and pray that their campaign to end it in DC and Denver will be successful. I think they're going to win, and I really hope that they do. Um, I think that foie gras is another unique one where I think it's the perfect thing where, um, and I mean, this applies to other products of cruelty as well, but with foie gras, I think it's just really, really great about because we've already seen a couple of cities um, in the United States completely get rid of foie gras through pressure campaigning only. Asheville, North Carolina, I think was the first. Then Gainesville, Florida, I think was the second. And I know Austin, Texas is very close with just maybe one or two continuing to sell foie gras. So when that happens, when there's a city that barely has foie gras, I think it's going to be a lot easier to ask the politicians, city council or whoever, hey, can you vote for a bill that would ban the sale of foie gras? Because usually the excuse is we're going to hurt local businesses. I know there's a ban that I helped work on a little bit in Charlotte that was banning exotic animal performances, basically from circuses. And I know one of the big excuses was, we're going to hurt business. We're going to hurt business. And if nobody's selling foie gras, or if only one or two restaurants are, and they sell very little of it, then that's not really a valid excuse. And these politicians won't have anything to stand on. So what you do when you have a pressure campaign is you're not only like immediately getting rid of foie gras at a local restaurant, but you're paving the way for potential legislation where foie gras won't be able to come back on any menus by law. And I think laws can really help change our culture. And, when things are illegal, a lot of times, I'm not saying morality equals legality, because we all know that's definitely not true. But when there is a law against animal cruelty, I feel like people take it more seriously. And, obviously if it's enforced, then we're helping animals through law. So I think that's a great way that like pressure campaigns and, the people working for these bans and stuff, it's all kind of, even if we're not directly working together, it's all kind of coalescing into what could be really great for animals.
I love that. Nika, would you like to comment on that any further about the multi-pronged approach?
I think Nika had to leave us, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I wasn't sure if she was still here. I couldn't see. So Jen, do you want to comment about that in terms of thoughts on changing laws and the multi-pronged approach to success?
Absolutely. I think that pressure campaigns are really vital to make legislation possible. I know Trey was talking about decreasing opposition by reducing the number of restaurants serving foie gras. In some cases, we've seen in DC, you can even obtain allies this way. When you have a dynamic where some restaurants are no longer competitive because there are other restaurants serving foie gras and they are not, they also have incentive for the rest of the restaurants in that city to be on the same playing field as them, which can help them even push the conversation forward on your behalf. This happened for us in the DC Restaurant Association, where a restaurant agreed with the ethical issues of foie gras after some pressure and stopped serving foie gras. but felt like they wanted an equal playing field amongst all the DC restaurants. So they raised this on a call with the rest of the restaurant association. So that really helps when we get to the legislation phase, when we might have additional allies or at the very least less opposition. And then my personal opinion, and I'm not speaking for the coalition when I say this, is I think legislation is really necessary for the foie gras issue. The restaurant industry is very volatile. By the time we in DC knock out a handful of restaurants, sometimes there's a new one that pops up that has never heard of us. This is their first time running a restaurant in Washington, DC, and they're serving foie gras. So with that quick cycle of restaurant turnaround, it can be really hard to sustain pressure campaigns indefinitely if you might have another one popping up every now and then. So I think the collaboration with legislation is really vital to eliminate the industry permanently.
So we're still open to questions. If I missed any of your questions out there, please feel free to resend those, repost those. Lynette, your thoughts on this?
Well, like Jen and Trey both said, people working on legislation don't have to directly work with the people protesting because they just naturally go hand in hand. If the protesters are causing problems at the restaurant and the legislation could, help eliminate that problem, it works in everybody's favor.
Yeah, absolutely love that. So there was some media, right? We were talking about not a lot for this win, but so how do we get more mainstream media? And what did you think about any of that media exposure that this campaign got, Trey?
Yeah, I think the Condé Nast win in the anti-fur campaign against them just a couple weeks ago that won. I think they got a lot more media because Condé Nast actually put it on their website and Omni didn't. I think that's probably a big reason. But yeah, and yeah, because it's a little bit different because with the anti-fur stuff, it's like, okay, Condé Nast wants to kind of like pretend that we did this for ethical reasons and almost make a little bit of a thing out of it by putting it on their website and making themselves kind of look good or save face. Whereas with Omni, they took a different strategy and like kind of tried to more like sweep it under the rug and just kind of tell us that they're enacting a foie gras free policy. So yeah, and I don't know. I think Vogue is way more influential in with fashion than Omni is with like foie gras too. You know what I mean? So that's probably a big reason as well. But yeah, I don't know why more media didn't pick it up. But shout out to Veg News for doing a really cool article about it. It really is a massive win, whether the media picks it up or not. All the activists that worked on it and all the activists that are in the grassroots across the world, they know how big of a victory this is and they know the implications of it. So I think that's what matters most.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Lynette or Jen, on the media?
We didn't have any media coverage locally on the Omni win, but we did have some coverage during the campaign. And I think this worked out well because of the amazing work that other organizations like Animal Outlook and Legal Impact for Chickens are doing to sue companies or restaurants that are making false claims about how humane foie gras is. These kinds of lawsuits allowed us to tell the DC Coalition Against Foie Gras story about all the work we've been doing locally. And that included the reporter being very interested in the protest we did at Omni during a wedding. So I think when we take those radical steps and tactics to really pressure the business, that gets the attention of journalists and is something that they might be interested in reporting on.
Yeah, the human interest angle. Lynette, any experience in Chicago with this, with media or thoughts?
We didn't get any large media coverage. We would occasionally have like a student photojournalist or another like photographer that we would then like exchange contact information with and partner, like showing their work, showing our work, but nothing big media-wise.
That's cool. So since Trey mentioned Condé Nast, here's a bigger question, which is on the heels of Condé Nast win, can we draw a correlation? Both caved to the pressure, but what does it mean to the animal liberation movement? Because when we're sitting here, we're saying it's historical. Do we really mean that? Or are we just sort of throwing that out there, hoping that that's sort of spinning it the way we like to spin it? In your view, where does this sit historically? In terms of, we just had a win 2 weeks ago. The network of activists, boots to the ground, and here's another win. So Trey, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I was kind of alluding to it earlier when I was going through the list of all the organizations that helped with this win. And by the way, if you helped and I didn't shout you out, like put it in the comments and we'll try to shout you out. But yeah, AAC's got a beautiful partnership with Coalition to Abolish the Fur Trade and ICAW, International Council for Animal Welfare. And yeah, we've been kind of, we've been working with CAF for a while. ICAW is a little bit newer, but we've been kind of like trying out this thing where we're sort of helping each other with these national campaigns. And yeah, it's been really fruitful so far. I mean, Vogue, Vogue dropped and Omni dropped. So in the email to Omni, the most recent email, somebody contacted them and let them know, like, hey, I'm working on the Omni campaign now. I just got done working on the Condé Nast campaign. Let me tell you a little bit about that. And I think that's probably what pushed us across the finish line is, Omni taking a look at the Condé Nast campaign and saying, like, well, if they're not going to give up on Condé Nast, they're probably not going to give up on us. And this is just going to continue forever. And we're not going to be able to wait it out. And they haven't even escalated their campaign as far as they can yet. So I think that's probably what pushed us over the edge and, or like over the finish line. And yeah, I think that says a lot too about like attempting to communicate with your target and kind of letting them know, because sometimes if you let them know you're about to do something, I mean, sometimes maybe you want the element of surprise, but sometimes it might be strategic to say like, hey, we're going to escalate. And maybe that'll prevent you from having to escalate, and then you can save some time and move on to the next target. But you have to be prepared. Like, you can't bluff. You got to be prepared to do whatever you say you're going to do. And we were prepared. But yeah, I think it's really important. Solidarity. I mean, that's what it boils down to, right? Solidarity is super important for building momentum and getting these wins. All these victories have grassroots animal rights activists that are working on multiple campaigns around the country and around the world. And it's a beautiful thing to see it come together more and more, and we can actually benefit from each other's work and not just entirely start from scratch each and every time.
Absolutely. Jen, anything for you in your mind that you connect the dots between both wins in regards to the movement itself overall, or just, nationally, the strategy?
Yeah, I think we are in a historic moment in that we, especially in the United States and more so every week with our friends over in Europe, we're the most networked that we've ever been, I think, in the movement. People know each other across the country, can collaborate easily and join forces across campaigns to have a larger effect. And I think that is monumental for the movement, that people working on fur can work on cage free, the people working on welfare work will show up at a foie gras demo. I think crossing those lines and building our people power is going to be transformative, and we're already starting to see the effects of that over the last couple weeks. So I'm really excited to see where we go from here, as I get to know more people across the country, and our local groups partner up with other local groups. We're only building the impact we can have for the animals. So I'm so excited to see everything that AAC has in store for us over the next year or so. I can only imagine that we will have more and more success as we become more and more connected to one another in this work.
Lynette, any of your thoughts about how the activism network is growing overall in this web of 6 degrees of separation for every grassroots group knows every other grassroots group? Has that been your experience?
I think that shows up the most on social media. I think that reposting these, well edited, beautiful, large looking demonstrations and reposting it, there must be thousands of us, right? And it was very tactful to send Omni our Condé Nast win, to be like, hey, this is what's next, guys. And I believe that when a company sees the protest group, if they look at our social media, if they see the years and years of companies adopting these policies we pressure them into, I think it does speed things up a bit.
Absolutely. So I know we've been stressing, how important alliances and coordinated efforts and collaborations with simultaneous actions are, but let's talk about individuals. They played a large role in this, as not necessarily part of a formal group. So Trey, how important was for this win the support of activists all over with just commenting, like Lynette saying, commenting and posting and sharing and liking and call storms, like what was done in regard to engage simple action, simple, quick calls to action that led to this win as well. And I think you wanted to thank Thomas Gordon, so let's not forget to do that.
Yeah, Thomas Gorman. Yeah, Thomas Gorman's the man. He really helped us get across the finish line too, and just everything Thomas does for the animals, we really appreciate, and we're so happy to be able to work with him and everybody at the Duck Alliance. But as far as individuals go, yeah, I mean, so many individuals helped with this campaign. Like I said, even the groups in Europe that couldn't necessarily be involved because there's no Omni locations in Europe, some of those individuals actually came all the way to the United States and helped with the campaign. And there are individuals who aren't necessarily a part of any groups, and I want to name them, but I don't know who feels comfortable being named and things like that. But people who advised on the campaign and people who did things just behind the scenes to help out. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to any campaign, but especially like a big national campaign, individual action is key, and you don't necessarily have to wait around on someone to ask you to do something. And that's why this campaign was so great, because people owned it. Like, people owned this campaign. They didn't necessarily wait to be instructed. They took action into their own hands and, decided what was best in their local groups. I mean, just like, Lynette and the team in Chicago, they've did their own research. They found this Bonchi pizza angle, and they protested Bonchi. And it was really, when I was watching the footage, I was just so amazed, and it just really made my day. They protested Bonchi. The manager came out and talked with one of the activists, and this was all on film. It's in a video somewhere way down the line on AAC's Instagram page. But yeah, the manager came out and said, hey, you guys, like, I disagree with foie gras. I don't want anything to do with that. I didn't know Omni was connected with this. They immediately decided on the spot that we're going to pull our partnership with Omni. And the manager literally got on the phone right in front of the activists at the protest, got on the phone, called Omni, and he said, hey, man, I'm not too thrilled that your company serves foie gras, because now they're in my business and I don't agree with foie gras, and you guys, pull my pizza off your menu, because this is over. That's pretty much what was said in a nutshell. And then the manager of Bonchi invited the activists in for vegan pizza on the house. So some people, you know, take notes. Animal abusers, take notes. That's how you respond to a protest from the grassroots. You don't want to be on the bad side of the grassroots animal rights movement.
I love that. Is so classic. I wish we had the link right now that it was easily accessible. You'll have to reshare because I don't know if I've seen that one. That's so damn right. We want to clone that manager. We want to take his brain and spread it out into everybody else's head as well. That is.
Well, like Condé Nast, he was strategic, and he used our annoyance to have like a sustainability to make himself look good, which was just fantastic for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great optic for all of us. We can imagine that interaction. So when we're talking about calls to action for individuals in very, very small groups, that's all you need is 2 people to go out somewhere like that. Jen, any experiences or thoughts on that? The average person, how they helped this, how they can continue to engage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one individual can make a massive difference, especially at the local level. Like, you sometimes can win an entire campaign with just one person standing outside of a restaurant. You can win a campaign with one Google review if it's something that upsets the business owner. So I think those people have tremendous power. You know, often we in the DC community get banned from restaurants that we're protesting at. So we lose the ability to do things like disruptions. And a single person showing up to the protest for the first time unlocks the ability to do a disruption again because that person has not been banned yet. So just showing up, just writing the Google review, leaving a comment can have massive impact. You never know what ends up tipping the scale.
Nice. That is so cool and so important and so great. So I'm not seeing too many more questions coming in. We'll wrap up in a bit, but before we do that, and I want to make sure we haven't forgotten anything. So think about what you still want to share today. But just to go back for a moment to pressure campaigns in terms of educating activists, especially newbie activists, tactics versus strategies. What is the difference? And can you give us maybe one example in this campaign of what a tactic is versus what a strategy is within this campaign, Trey?
Yeah, so the Cranky Vegan has a lot of videos on this. I would highly recommend you check out his channel to learn a lot more. But yeah, I mean, the strategy is kind of like the overarching, like what you're going to do to get this to happen. Whereas a tactic might be kind of like, you know, Jen was talking about with a disruption. Disruptions might be a tactic as a part of your strategy. So yeah, one's kind of, I mean, I guess to put it simply, like one's sort of big picture and one is sort of like individual actions that you can do.
Jen, how would you explain it? What would be an example of either?
Yeah, I would say your strategy are the angles you're choosing to take in order to influence pressure. So there's a multitude of angles you could take when you're approaching a company like Omni. Do you expect the executive to be particularly reactive? Do you expect their business partners to be the ones to apply pressure? Do they have a crisis management firm that loves to fight with people on Twitter? You know, whoever is the squeaky wheel is where we like to apply pressure. So I would say the strategy is more all-encompassing, taking a look at the entire picture and figuring out where we want to apply pressure. And tactics are the pressure tools that we use. With a local campaign, tactics can be super diverse depending on your target. If you are going after a small business, sometimes you don't need a lot of megaphones and disruptions because the introduction of just a little bit of chalk or a little bit of blood is enough for them to be like, oh my gosh, they're doing something new. This is crazy. I can't handle this. We need to end this campaign now. Whereas at a national campaign, those kind of larger things might be necessary in order to get the message up the chain to a decision maker. So it really varies so much on what your location is, and being aware of that is more of the tactical angle versus understanding where you can apply pressure at the larger strategy.
Nice. Lynette, anything for you about tactics and strategies used in Chicago?
So, for example, a strategy was that we wanted to get the message all the way up to corporate. And our tactic was going to Stephanie Izzard's restaurant, Duck Duck Go, and letting her know, pass it up the chain. Like, you're going to Omni headquarters in a couple of days for a special event. That was the strategy. Tell Omni, foie gras free policy. And our tactic was demonstrations.
Perfect. That's right. You wanted to mention Rachel Harrison.
Yeah, there were a lot of strategies as far as like secondary campaigning goes, but in the middle of the Omni campaign, Omni Hotels and Resorts hired a crisis PR firm, and that was Rachel Harrison Communications, owned by Rachel Harrison. So as part of the New York City Convergence, shout out to all the locals in New York, as well as everybody that came out for the NYC Convergence. We put a lot of pressure on Rachel because of her connection to Omni. And the thought process behind that was kind of like, okay, Omni's hiring a crisis PR firm, probably because of us. So what happens when the crisis PR firm doesn't even want to be connected with Omni anymore? So that's kind of like what we were thinking. So that was the strategy, and then the tactics we used were, showing up at her offices, the Rachel Harrison Communication offices, and a couple of people even got inside, even though it was like a locked thing with a keypad. Like a couple of people were able to like kind of sneak by, someone else opened the door or something like that, and they were able to get in, and they disrupted Rachel Harrison Communications. And I'm sure they were not expecting that. Even though we were outside protesting, I'm sure they were not expecting that. And we showed up to Rachel Harrison's house and protested on public property out on the sidewalk. And some other people in the community even joined. There was this one guy I remember in particular that just like showed up. I guess he lived in the neighborhood. He like showed up and he's like, what's this about? He learned what it was about, and he grabbed a sign, and he even came up with some of the chants that we were starting to use. Like he sort of like became almost a leader of the protest, and he had like just found out about it. So one of the best chants I think that we got out of the whole campaign was from this random guy. I don't even know his name, but it was Rachel sucks for killing ducks, and it was pretty catchy, and we all had a pretty fun time with that one.
I remember that. That's another classic moment that stands out. That's so great. Jen, for you, any other thoughts about Rachel Harrison or home demos in general and their efficacy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen, especially with the Condé win, how important home demos are, getting directly to the decision makers and making the campaign part of their daily lives makes it really hard for them to not think about it and not consider making a decision on it. I think this is a really high up on the escalation ladder, though. For local campaigns, we often do not need, we've never done a home demo in the DC for local foie gras campaigns, and we've won 30 of them. So like, they're not a necessary tool if they're not something that's available to you. But they really do help when you are in a long campaign that needs an extra boost or an extra level of escalation. They can really help with that. Yeah.
Lynette, anything you want to add to that?
Definitely the home demos, like during Convergence in New York and NDC, were problematic to the decision makers, and that was the whole point. And by not responding to us, they took it there, Like if they would have been like, oh yeah, no problem, we don't want foie gras on our menus ever again, like right away, right? Then they wouldn't invite us over. But they held out.
Yeah, I think at best we could say we confused the hell out of them. took them by surprise for sure. Let's see. So there's maybe one final question we could give a quick answer to from the comments is, I have a friend that lives in Croatia. She'd love to start doing pressure campaigns, but there's nothing going on in the city. How can she best get involved?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, AAC has a brand new program specifically designed to help train and mentor people who want to do campaigns like this. And in my experience, I'm from a small town in the South. When I went vegan, it was really hard to find people. So this is something I really kind of relate to. It can be difficult, but in my experience, if you get out there and you do it, it'll happen. You sort of have to like put yourself out there and make something happen for anything else to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I just started organizing with the mindset of, if I'm the only person who shows up to this, so be it. I'll do everything in my power for the animals to do what I have to do to, make a difference. And if even one other person showed up, I would be thrilled that they came. So, and Jen talked about this just a minute ago. It only takes one person. One person can be very, very annoying and very, very persuasive. I don't know if this is species or not. I've used this in the past, but like, think about if you're camping outside in a tent and there's a mosquito in your tent. A mosquito is this big, but can cause a lot of chaos. You don't want to get eaten up by the mosquito. So, we can be the mosquitoes in this scenario. We're even if it's just one of us, even if we're tiny compared to, some company or whatever, we can be very annoying. A company does not want one person out in front of their door acting crazy, or like whatever you want to do out there that's within the confines of the law. They don't want that. It makes them look bad, even if it is only one person. And I'll also say, just having been a part of AAC for so long and having seen so many activists come through the mentorship program and all of that, I think what activists find when they do solo activism, while it can be scary, and while it can sometimes even feel isolating, I think there's something really powerful about seeing someone who's willing to take action, even if it's by themselves. And of course, I would encourage anybody who does solo activism to think about any potential like safety risks or anything, or things like that. But if it's reasonably safe to do solo activism, I think it still makes a difference. But hopefully you can find your community there in Croatia and get something going. But yeah, I would encourage you to have that mindset of like, hey, if someone else isn't going to do it, I'm going to do it, even if I have to do it alone. And I think if you have that mindset, the rest will naturally come and people will find you.
Yeah, and maybe the questioner could reach out to that friend and let them know about AAC. Maybe they want to sign up for a mentor. But I love the mosquito analogy, and we're reminding activists that even if you're in a remote area, it doesn't have to be a block or a barrier. You can do solo activism, but stay safe, certainly. So those are some really good tips for that. So I think to wrap up, I'm going to throw it back to each of you. Any final words or anything you forgot to mention, or anything that really is important and needs to be mentioned? Any shout outs? What are you grateful for? Anything else that was a highlight that stands out about this particular campaign? And nothing's over. This is not like a final thing. This is just leading to the next thing. We're building a bridge to what works. We know more about what works now. So Jen, do you want to start?
Sure. I'll go back to something we touched on at the very beginning, that this is not the first time the animal rights community has tried to campaign against Omni, but this time we had the power in the grassroots to make it happen. And I think that should be really inspiring to everyone, to show the amount of growth that the animal rights scene across the country has had over the past few years, as well as inspire them to take on challenges that they might not think that is perfectly in their wheelhouse right now, because we will be building the power for more and more over time. So if this is something that's new for you, if you're looking to take on more leadership roles or organize more, those opportunities are opening, and I would really encourage you to start jumping on them.
Lynette, and then Trey.
I mean, hot off these 2 wins with the momentum, the enthusiasm, and the camaraderie, let's get stoked about Fur Free Friday. You know, like we got 6 weeks. We can do so much in that short amount of time and get as many people out there as possible. And like what Jen said, if you want more than just holding a sign, we need help in like so many different ways. You know, video editing and graphic design. You know, could you pick someone up and drop them off? Can we have signs mailed to you? Could you cook? You know, anything like that to keep us positive, to keep us going, and to keep us excited for the next thing. There's so many opportunities to be involved with animal activism.
Nice. Trey.
I don't think I can be as eloquent as the other 2 guests, but I'll do my best. Something I wanted to touch on from before, when Omni sent that initial response back toward the beginning of the campaign, they were kind of making some threats, like that. You know, they were talking about getting police involved, which the police showed up to almost every protest, and usually it wasn't a big deal, because everybody was like taking legal action. But they were also kind of like threatening, civil action. And these might be things that we need to be prepared for. But yeah, so be prepared for that. But, we're in a position in the animal rights movement where sometimes there's going to be a brick wall that we kind of have to run through. And some of these obstacles, we're not going to be able to get around. But I am so glad that the grassroots animal rights movement is just so willing to keep going. We kept going. They never did sue us or anything like that. And we got the victory. I don't think they had any grounds to sue us on. But anyway, I also just want to thank every single person who worked on this campaign. There's only a few of us on this live stream. There's so many people that without them, this victory would not have been possible. I shouted them all out earlier, and I think I got every group. We'd be on the call a lot longer if I started listing individual names. But there were so many people who were just truly instrumental in this win. And I hope that all of you will take, I know we're going to be on to the next thing soon, but I hope that everybody will take a moment to just pat yourself on the back, celebrate, maybe even take a day or 2 or whatever to just really reflect about all the work that you put in and everything that's been achieved because of your work. I'm so thankful to everybody in this community that stuck with this campaign. We won 3 days shy of the official launch of the campaign, 3 days shy of a year of the official launch of the campaign. So it was, nearly a year of just intense work from so many different grassroots groups and individuals. And I'm so thankful for everybody who worked on this campaign. And I also want to send a message to any business who's continuing to sell foie gras. Take a look at some of the videos on social media and see what you can expect if you continue to sell foie gras. This is a movement that is continuing to grow, is continuing to gain momentum, not only here in the United States, but Canada and Europe and elsewhere. And we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop anytime soon. We are going to continue to try to force foie gras out of the lexicon. And I'm thrilled to do that work with all the people who are part of this campaign and everybody who's yet to join our movement that will, because it's continuing to grow. And thank you, Michelle, for all the work that you did on this campaign and for hosting us today.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, for the animals, just bringing the animals back front and center here for them. And thank you to this panel, Trey and Lynette and Jen and Nika. And thank you everyone who has joined us. And in closing, we just announced again our fur-free weekend, 4 days of back-to-back action in New York City, November 28th through 30th, and we'll be targeting fur. So my final questions for anybody is, will you be as bold as the animals need you to be? Will you be as strong as the animals need you to be? Will you be as assertive and loud as the animals need you to be? Will you be as unstoppable as the animals need you to be? And I hope your answer is yes. All right, until next time, thanks y'all. AAC signing off.